going on, guys? Peter J. Cruz here. Welcome back to the Atlantis Chronicles. We're on chapter 2, tracking bass guitar. So basically I'm going to go over the setup, and I've got Sonar running here and a bunch of other stuff. Kind of give you a behind the scenes look of what's going on here in my studio, at least, with the hopes that some of this will be useful to you in your projects in the future, trying to set up stuff. And first thing that you're probably going to need straight off the bat for recording bass in your home projects or on your own or whatever is, of course, a bass guitar. If you don't have a bass guitar, do you have to have one? No, not necessarily. You could kind of make do with a guitar, and then you'll have to find a like a plug-in or basically a pitch shifter that'll let you transpose down an octave. You do that, you could probably make for a somewhat passable bass guitar sound in your for your projects, and that'll get you by. You can go to your local music store and probably find a beginner bass, probably for under $200. Nothing super fancy, something with 4 or 5 strings, with some marginally workable pickups or whatever, and that'll get you even further, as far as getting a truer bass sound rather than pitch shifting your guitar down a whole octave. But if buying a bass guitar isn't in the cards, and you don't actually have a bass, then you could get one of your guitar modeling plugins usually have some sort of a pitch shifter effect that you can put in the signal chain somewhere, and I'll kind of go over that here in a little bit. But basically, just off the bat, from my setup here, before I get into alternatives necessarily with what you can do if you didn't have a bass guitar, you could go ahead and do. My signal here is basically I've got my Yamaha bass, and I have it plugged in straight into my audio interface. So I've got a PreSonus Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40, and I've got it plugged into one of the front channels on the front, where it's got the Nutric connector where you can do either a 1/4-inch instrument jack in or a XLR microphone, and I've got my gain adjusted and so forth, so you can hear the bass, and then from there it just basically goes straight into my interface, right into Sonar. And as we're going to take a look now into Sonar, I've actually got a whatchamacallit, channel here set up, and I've actually got to set it up wrong. I'm now looking at it because you see my voice popping around. There we go. This is my bass. Got it. All right, here we go. Now we're cooking here. So I basically just have the DI from the bass guitar plugged into my audio interface, and I've just literally taken an instrument cable, and it's plugged straight into my interface. No, I'm not running any pedals in front of it or anything. And by the way, I don't have a bass amp per se, so it's DI, which is honestly what a lot of the pro studios will use on a bass. I mean, a lot of them will do an amp, but they'll almost always take a DI either instead of or in addition to an actual bass rig, amp, pedals, whatever that the bass player decides to use. So anyway, I'm doing the DI solution here. I plug it straight into my audio interface, and then I've got basically a channel set up here in Sonar, and as you can see, I've got Guitar Rig loaded up, and I'll just pick, any bass rig, precise bottom. It doesn't really, I'll do pick bass 2. I'll just pick a preset, because quite honestly, I'm doing the DI, and I'm going to end up using Guitar Rig 5 with whatever amp setup I'm going to use in software, but it's not going to be a final decision until I get down to mix time. When I get down to my actual mix, I'll be able to try different amps and cabinets and effects or whatever, EQ stuff in Guitar Rig 5 with the bass guitar to kind of figure out exactly where I want it to sit in relation to the rest of the other instruments, the guitars and everything else. So I'll have a little bit of flexibility with that come mix time. Whereas if I just recorded it, with an amp or whatever, it's in stone, it's recorded. The only way to change it now is radical EQ, radical compression, or just re-record the whole thing from scratch. So the DI really does give you a lot of flexibility for bass, And heck, if you don't have a an amp setup, you can record at 2 o'clock in the morning. Neighbors or parents or girlfriends or wives or whatever. You could always plug into your interface or whatever with something like Guitar Rig 5 and sit there and record your guitar parts. And when I get to the guitar parts, I'm going to show you that exactly. And it also gives you a lot of flexibility when you do edits and mix down. But we'll look at that at another chapter later down the road. When I record my guitars later, I will be taking a DI in addition to my amp rigs as well. So, but anyway, going back into the bass here. I've already got Sonar loaded up. I got Guitar Rig set up here with a bass preset. I mean, I'm not going to get fancy with this, just for tracking, and it's not in stone because I can always change the sound later, and I'll just use that when I go ahead and I actually do my tracking, and then when I'm done for bass, essentially, I mean, I'll go through and I'll record my bass track, and when I'm done recording the bass track, I'll listen back to it. And if everything's, if I got all the notes in there that I need and I didn't have any obvious mistakes or play the wrong bass note or whatever, if it's a great take, it just stays it just like, I mean, I just leave it the way it is. I don't double track it or anything like that, because what I'll do later in Guitar Rig, and I haven't started messing with the presets just yet, but I'll probably in Guitar Rig here, I'll probably create, it's a splitter. And I gotta remember where the heck I put it on, where they keep it. Filters, modulation. Anyway, it's one of these in here. It actually lets you split the signal. Here it is right here. So now I would take splitter, and I'd be able to put this setup here under split A, and under split B I can go into another one and pull up like another bass amp or whatever I want. Let's say I wanted to stick a Marshall in there or something, just for getting really silly and throwing some distortions or whatever in there. And then I'll get a cabinet that matches that one. I'll do just a match cabinet just for simplicity. Go down. Okay, here we go. So I've got split A and then split B, and then with the split mix, I'll be able to basically tweak the two sounds together to what I want to get. And essentially, in a nutshell, and we'll look at this as I get down to mix down and what my final mix rig will be for the bass guitar, because I'll probably go over that as well. But what the ultimate bass sound I'm actually looking for is I'm going to have a dual signal, essentially. I'm going to take the DI, I'm going to split it into two signal paths in software, not in reality, but in the software. I'm going to split it into two signals. One end's going to be probably like a heavily distorted, and I'm going to chop the low end off. So it's basically going to be like real high-endy, real trebly type, real thin-sounding bass, but it's going to be heavily distorted, like a lot of heavy gain, that sort of thing. Probably throw a distortion pedal, virtual distortion pedal in Guitar Rig 5 up at the front. And then like a metal distortion, not a tube screamer, but like a metal distortion, really chunky. And then I'm going to, on the clean side, I'm going to go for like a really clean, like SVT type sound, or the Bass Pro amp. I forget which model, if it's an Ampeg or if it's a Trace or whatever amp that they modeled for it. But then on the other side, it'll be like really clean, real jangly, that type of thing, with plenty of low end and a lot of bass and stuff. And then I'll take the two and I'll kind of mix them together to get a nice composite sound. For the bass guitar, that's got some grit, it's got some grind, and it's got a nice fat overall body to it. That's going to help my low end on my mix really settle in and be real full. So that is pretty much it. Again, bass guitar, plug straight in on a DI to my interface, and then everything else I'm doing that with the bass guitar is strictly done in software. So depending on what your budget essentially is, if you don't have access to a bass guitar, again, you could use your guitar plugged in and use like a pitch shifting plug-in that basically transposes your guitar playing down an octave. And if you do that, what you'll want to do is there's a mix control usually in those plugins, and that plug-in, that mix control will allow you basically to remove your guitar sound to where all you hear is the lowered pitch down an octave. So then your guitar now, as you play it, sounds almost like a bass. And I would just stick to staying, you know, like your 5th and your 6th string, or if you go down even to 7th string, even better. You'll have even more flexibility with how low your bass can go for that if you're substituting a guitar with a pitch shifter for an actual bass. And then as far as plugins, I mean, you know, Guitar Rig 5 is what I've got. I've also got TH2. Offhand, I don't remember if they have any bass amps in there that are modeled. They may. I haven't messed with it enough to truly know TH2 as well as I do, say, Guitar Rig 5. Amplitube 3.7 or whatever number they're up to now is also a great solution. You can get Amplitube 3 point whatever from iKey Multimedia's website. It's free. They have a free version you can literally download. And it comes with, like, I think, like one bass amp, one guitar amp, or a couple of guitar amps, a few cabinets, and a couple of pedals. Nothing super fancy, but really kind of a nitty-gritty, kind of a core sound that you can certainly get started with. And then they have a custom shop that you can get and buy individual amps, cabinets, whatever tickles your fancy, a la carte. I mean, if you want to, you know, go and buy, you know, an old SVT model or whatever, actually, which they actually have the licensing from MPEG for, you could buy it for, I think it's like 20 or 30 bucks by itself, whereas instead of going and buying a full-on, you know, Guitar Rig pack, or, I mean, excuse me, an Amplitube package, like, you know, metal or something, which might cost like 150 bucks, then you can, you know, you can get the components you need, maybe spend 50 or 60 bucks or whatever, or less, if you only buy one item, if they have a sale going or whatever. Then you can go ahead and go that route. So certainly, and there's, by the way, there's plenty also freeware VST plugins for guitar preamps, guitar amps, cabinets, and so forth. So just search the web, Google it, you know, whatever you're looking for, whether it's guitars or cabinets or bass or whatever. And there's also plenty of free plugins out there that will do that, similar to a Guitar Rig or, you know, Amplitube or whatever. So anyway, that's all I really had for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Rock on. Please be sure to subscribe and comment and give me a like down below. And stay tuned. We'll go ahead and actually get busy with the guitar videos, guitar tracking videos, hopefully soon. That signal path is a little bit more complex than what I'm running with the bass. But stay tuned. Rock on. And we'll catch you later.